It was a night that never truly ended on Mars Colony E9. The red planet storms howled against metal walls, shaking loose dust that had slept for centuries. Inside one of the smallest colony shelters, a single light flickered. John Hawley sat alone beside a rusted heater. He was an engineer, one of the last humans still working on this abandoned side of the colony. His hands were cracked from cold. His breath came out in tiny clouds. He had learned to live with silence. It was easier that way. Then came the knock. At first, he thought it was the wind beating against the outer door. But then it came again 3 times, slow and heavy. Knock, knock, knock. John froze. No one ever came here at night. No human dared to. The patrols had long stopped visiting this sector. He grabbed the plasma torch lying beside him, his only weapon, and moved toward the door. The airlock sensor blinked weakly. Someone was outside. "Who's there?" John's voice echoed against the metal. No answer. "Identify yourself," he demanded again. Then, faintly through the static intercom, came a voice, soft, trembling, yet strangely calm. "Please, human, open the door." The voice was not human. John hesitated. Alien voices had a sound he could never mistake, gentle but layered, like music trapped in metal. His chest tightened. He should not open it. The law was clear: no alien contact without clearance. Violators were exiled or worse. But the voice came again. "My children, they are freezing. Please." A weak cry followed a child's cry, muffled by the storm. John's hand shook as he pressed the manual release. The door slid open with a hiss of cold air. What he saw made his heart stop. A woman stood there, tall, slender, her skin a faint violet glowing under the red dust light. Her eyes, large and golden, looked straight into his. In her arms were 2 small children, wrapped in torn cloth. They shivered violently. The woman's lips parted. "I will warm your bed, human," she said, her voice almost breaking. "My children need a father." John stared, unable to speak. Behind her, the desert wind carried particles of iron dust that glowed faintly like dying embers. Her silver hair whipped across her face. She looked exhausted, on the edge of collapse. He stepped forward and caught her before she fell. He dragged her and the children inside. The heater flared as he raised the temperature. For a moment, no one spoke. The children clung to their mother, afraid of him. When she finally opened her eyes, John noticed the burns on her arms, marks from plasma rifles. She had been running from something. Maybe soldiers. Maybe worse. He offered her water. She took it carefully, her fingers trembling. "Who are you?" John asked quietly. "My name is Sira," she whispered. "I am from Elthera Prime." John's stomach twisted. Elthera. That was the enemy world, the one humanity fought for 6 long years. Millions had died there, humans and aliens both. He swallowed hard. "And your mate?" Her eyes darkened. "He died in your war." Silence filled the room. The wind screamed outside. John turned away, guilt pressing on him, though he had never fought personally. He was only an engineer, fixing machines others used to kill. When he looked back, he saw one of the children, tiny, blue-skinned, with glowing white hair, touching the heater cautiously, then pulling back with a giggle. For the first time that night, something like life flickered in the room. John sighed. "You can stay here for the night. Just be quiet. If patrols find you, we're both dead." Sira bowed her head. "Thank you, human." Hours passed. John tried to sleep, but couldn't. Every sound outside felt louder now. He glanced at the alien family curled near the heater. The 2 children were asleep, their small bodies huddled together. Sira sat awake, staring at the orange light. "Why did you come here?" he finally asked. Sira didn't look at him. "Because you humans destroyed our city. The camps. There was no food left. My children were dying." John frowned. There are refugee shelters in Zone D. She shook her head slowly. They don't take Eltherans. They take workers. They take samples. Not mothers with children. He understood what she meant. The government's research program had a dark side aliens used for experiments, disease testing, hybrid study. He had seen the files once, before he resigned from the science division. John clenched his jaw. You came to the wrong man, Sira. I can't protect you. She looked up, eyes shining in the heater's glow. You opened the door. That means something. For a long time, neither spoke again. The sound of the wind filled the silence out by morning. The storm had passed. A thin beam of sunlight broke through the cracked dome window. The children woke first. One of them, little Rin, stared at John curiously, then smiled. John, still half asleep, offered them dried bread from his ration pack. They ate quickly, their small hands shaking from hunger. He watched quietly. Something about them pulled at his heart, the way they sat together, protecting each other. When Sira thanked him, he noticed her eyes lingered on his wounded hand. You are hurt, she said softly. She reached out, touching the cut with surprising gentleness. Her touch was warm, strangely warm, for someone who looked so cold. John pulled back awkwardly. It's nothing. I work with engines. Cuts happen. But inside, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. A small spark of connection. Later that day, John went outside to check the solar panels. The red dunes stretched endlessly, silent and lifeless. But in the distance, he saw movement lights gliding across the horizon. Patrol drones. His heart skipped. They were searching this sector. He rushed back inside. You need to hide, he said quickly. Sira's eyes widened. He pointed to the crawl space beneath the floor. Down there now. Sira obeyed, grabbing her children. The space was tight and dark. John covered it with old panels just as the outer door sensor blinked red. Someone was approaching. Knock. Knock. This time it was not desperate. It was official. John opened the door a few inches. 2 colony guards stood outside, their helmets reflecting the morning sun. Engineer Halle, one said. We detected unauthorized biosigns last night. You seen anything unusual? John forced a tired smile. Just rats, maybe. The air filters mess with scanners. The guard frowned. Mind if we check? John's heart pounded. You're welcome to look, he said, stepping aside. They walked in, flashlights sweeping the room. One beam paused over the heater, then the bed, then the floor where the crawlspace lay hidden. John held his breath. He could almost hear Sira's children trembling below. Finally, the guard grunted. Clear. They turned to leave. But before going, one guard said, Be careful, Hall. Word is, the Eltherans are trying to infiltrate the colonies. If you see anything, report it. John nodded. Of course. The door shut. The moment they left, he dropped to his knees and opened the floor panel. Sira's wide golden eyes stared back up at him, terrified. They're gone, he whispered. She climbed out slowly, holding her children close. You risked everything, she said quietly. John shook his head. You need to leave this place soon. They'll come again. Sira looked down at her children. Where will we go, human? There is no place left for us. John didn't answer. He just looked at the small family standing in his broken home and felt the weight of the entire war pressing down on him. That night, he couldn't sleep again. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face at the door, the tears, the fear, the words she had said. I will warm your bed, human. My children need a father. He thought about how long it had been since he heard another voice that wasn't angry, mechanical, or tired. How long since he'd felt someone's presence beside him. He poured another cup of synthetic coffee and sat near the heater. Lost in thought. Then he heard a soft noise. He turned. Sira stood there, her silver hair falling over her face. She looked different now, cleaner, calmer, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "You should rest," she said. "I can't," he replied. "Too many thoughts." She smiled gently. "Humans think too much. On Elthera, we just listen to hearts." She knelt beside him. The air grew quiet, filled only by the hum of the heater. For a moment, John forgot about rules, wars, and species. There was just warmth, simple and real. Then, suddenly, the radio crackled to life. A robotic voice announced, "Attention, Sector E9. Unknown life forms detected in zone perimeter. All residents prepare for scan." John's blood ran cold. He looked at Sira. She looked back, eyes wide with fear. Outside, searchlights flashed against the red dust. The colony was closing in. He grabbed her arm. "We have to hide again." She shook her head. "They will find us sooner or later." "Then we'll run," John said, grabbing his tool bag. "I know a way out through the service tunnels." Sira glanced at her sleeping children. "They're weak," she whispered. "Then I'll carry them," John said. "I'm not letting them take you." For the first time, she looked at him not as a stranger, but as something else. A protector. A promise. The heater's glow dimmed as power shifted to emergency mode. Outside, boots echoed through the corridor. John held his breath. The night had begun again. The alarm lights flashed red across the dusty corridor. Outside, boots clattered, voices shouted orders. And search drones scanned every inch of Sector E9. Inside John Hale's small shelter, the alien widow Sira held her children close, their trembling forms wrapped in a thin blanket. The heater flickered weakly, painting their faces in orange light. John's heart raced as the colony broadcast echoed again. "Unauthorized life forms detected near Zone 4. All residents remain inside. Patrol in progress." He turned down the heater's power to hide the heat signature. The room fell into half-darkness. Sira looked at him with worried eyes. "They are hunting us, aren't they?" John nodded silently. "Yes, and if they find you here, they'll take the kids. They'll say it's for study." Sira shuddered. "That is what they said when they took others. They never came back." Her voice cracked, full of memories that hurt to speak. John couldn't bear it. He tightened his jaw and grabbed his tool bag. "We'll get through this," he said firmly. "But you have to trust me." When the sounds outside faded, John pulled open a panel in the floor. "There's a maintenance tunnel under the shelter. It connects to the old solar plant. If patrols return, we hide there." Sira peered down into the narrow space, fear flickering across her golden eyes. "It's dark," she whispered. John smiled faintly. "Dark is safe here." He helped her, and the children climbed down. The youngest, Rin, clutched a small metallic cube, the only thing they had brought from their world. It glowed faintly blue. "What's that?" John asked. Sira brushed the dust from its surface. "A memory crystal. It holds my mate's last song. Our kind keeps love through sound." The way she said it made John pause. A race that stored their love as sound, that was something beautiful in a world that had forgotten beauty. He sealed the hatch and waited in silence. Distant footsteps echoed above. A beam of light shone briefly through the cracks in the floor, then disappeared. The guards passed. Sira's breathing steadied. In the narrow darkness, she looked at him. "You saved us again, human. Why?" John shrugged. "Maybe I'm tired of watching good people die for nothing." Her lips curved slightly, though sadness lingered behind the smile. "You're strange for your kind." When the alarm finally ended, they climbed back up. The air was thin and cold, but at least they were safe for now. Sira began preparing something over the heater, a small bowl of alien herbs mixed with leftover human rations. The scent filled the room, sweet, earthy, and somehow comforting. John watched quietly. Her movements were careful, graceful. Even in exhaustion, she carried a strange dignity. "You cook better than the machines," he said, trying to lighten the mood. She looked up. "Machines don't cook with hope." He chuckled softly. It had been months since he laughed out as they ate. The two children fell asleep again. John glanced at their tiny faces and thought of his own childhood, his parents lost in the First Eltheran War. Maybe that's why he couldn't turn them away. Sira broke the silence. "Your people and mine. We were not always enemies, were we?" John shook his head. "No, we came as explorers once. But greed changes everything." She sighed. "On my world, we believed humans brought fire and light. Then we learned fire burns both ways." He looked at her, trying to read her expression, but all he saw was quiet sadness. For a moment, he felt guilty for every star humanity had conquered. Later that night, John stepped outside to fix a damaged antenna. The sky was clear, full of silver moons and floating dust that shimmered like frozen fire. He thought he was alone until he heard soft footsteps behind him. Sira had followed, wrapping herself in his spare jacket. "You shouldn't be out here," John whispered. "I couldn't sleep," she said. "The stars here. They look wounded." He looked up. "They used to make me feel small. Now they make me feel guilty." She tilted her head. "Guilt is only useful if it turns into kindness." Her words stayed with him. When a cold gust hit, she shivered. John instinctively stepped closer, shielding her from the wind. Their eyes met hers, glowing faintly in the dark, his reflecting the same confusion. He stepped back quickly. "Sorry, old habit." Sira smiled softly. "On Elthera, when someone stands close, it means safety, not shame." John looked away. "On Earth, it means danger sometimes." For a few seconds, silence stretched between them. Then a distant flash caught his eyelights moving near the horizon again. "Drones. They're still searching," he muttered. "We need a plan." The next morning, he connected his broken link to the colony's data grid. Through static, he picked up snippets of encrypted messages. Patrol logs, transport schedules. And something else, a memo about Eltheran refugees found near the northern domes. The humans were rounding up survivors. He turned to Sira. "They're sweeping every sector. We can't stay here. I'll get you out through the drainage tunnels to the outer mines. No scanners there." Sira touched his arm gently. "You will risk your life for us again?" John looked at her children. "They deserve a chance to live." Sira's eyes softened. "You speak like one of our healers." He smiled faintly. "I'm just a tired engineer." They began preparing for the escape. John packed oxygen filters, thermal blankets, and old food rations. The kids followed him around, curious about every tool he used. At one point, Rin asked in broken English, "Human, why help us?" John knelt beside him. "Because someone has to." Rin smiled shyly and handed him a tiny glowing flower from his pocket, a preserved piece of Elthera's forest. John took it, unsure why the gesture touched him so deeply. Meanwhile, Sira repaired the cracked heater core using her own technology. Blue sparks danced across her fingers as she fused metal with energy. John stared, amazed. "How did you do that?" "Our kind shapes heat," she explained. "We share warmth that is part of who we are." He blinked. "You mean, that's not just a phrase? I will warm your bed?" Sira smiled faintly. "To us, warmth is not just for the body. It means to share life." John felt something stir inside him, a quiet respect, maybe more as night approached. The storm returned. Red lightning slashed across the dunes, and the roof rattled violently. Inside, the heater glowed brighter. The children slept peacefully. Sira sat near them, singing softly in her language, a low, haunting melody that wrapped the room in calm. John listened, unable to look away. The song carried emotion he couldn't name, something ancient and pure. "What does it mean?" he asked quietly. Sira's voice trembled. "It's a promise. To keep those we love safe. Even if it costs us everything." Her words hit him deep. He realized she wasn't just a widow, she was a warrior who had already lost everything once. He swallowed. "I'll keep that promise too." She looked at him, eyes wet but shining. "Then maybe. You are already their father." John's heart thudded. He wanted to reply, but the words stuck. Outside, thunder roared, saving him from answering. A sudden explosion echoed through the night. The door shuddered. John jumped to his feet. Through the cracked window, he saw fire in the distance, the neighboring sector in flames. The patrols were burning abandoned shelters, clearing the zone. Sira gasped. "They're coming closer." John grabbed his pack. "We go now." He opened the hidden hatch and helped the children climb down first. The tunnels below were dark, wet, and full of the smell of old metal. He handed Sira a flashlight and lowered himself after her. Above them, the ground trembled. Boots, voices. John whispered, "Keep quiet." No sound. They moved through the narrow corridor, water dripping from the pipes overhead. The faint light from Rin's memory crystal showed the way. Every step felt endless. At one turn, John stopped. The tunnel split into two paths. The right led to the power station, safer but long. The left led to the surface exit, short but risky. He hesitated. Sira touched his hand. "Which way feels right, human?" He took a deep breath. "The dangerous one," he said. "Always the dangerous one." They moved left. When they finally reached the surface, dawn was breaking. The desert stretched endless and red. Far behind them, the colony burned like a dying star. Sira turned to look one last time, tears sliding down her face. "That was our last home," she whispered. John shook his head. "Home isn't walls. It's who's still alive beside you." She smiled faintly. "Then maybe this is home." He couldn't answer. He just kept walking, the children between them, the rising sun painting long shadows on the sand. Hours later, they reached an abandoned mining post. The place was silent except for the wind. Rusted machines lay scattered like broken bones. They took shelter inside. John collapsed, exhausted. His arm still bled from a small cut he hadn't noticed earlier. Sira tore a strip of cloth from her robe and pressed it gently to the wound. "You bleed like us," she murmured. "Maybe we're not that different," he replied. Her golden eyes softened. "Then why do your kind hate ours?" He stared at the floor. "Because we fear what we don't understand." She nodded slowly. "Then understand this. My people once said that warmth can melt even stone hearts. Perhaps yours too." John smiled faintly, looking at her children asleep against the wall. "Maybe it already has." Outside, the wind howled again, carrying dust in silence. But inside that old mine, a fragile peace lived between a human and the alien widow who had once stood at his door and said, "I will warm your bed, human. My children need a father." And though danger still waited beyond the dunes, for that brief moment, they were no longer enemies. They were family, hidden, hunted, and holding on to hope. To be continued in Part 3, The Promise of a New Family. The red sun rose slowly over the dunes, casting long shadows across the broken mining station. John Hawley stood near the entrance, scanning the horizon through his cracked visor. The wind had calmed, but the silence felt heavier than before. Every echo, every whisper of dust, sounded like danger. Sira and her children were still asleep in the corner, wrapped in thermal blankets. For a rare moment, they looked peaceful. No fear, no running, no hiding. Just a family resting under alien skies. John adjusted the power cells in his rifle, though he hated weapons. He didn't want to fight, But he knew the colony patrols wouldn't stop searching. He had betrayed human law, and now both humans and aliens might come for them. He turned back toward them and smiled faintly. "Let them rest," he whispered to himself. "Just a little longer." When Sira finally woke, the first thing she did was check on her children. Their soft breathing filled the silence. She exhaled in relief and looked at John. "You didn't sleep," she said. "Didn't feel like it," he replied. She tilted her head. "Humans tire too easily." He grinned. "We also worry too much." She walked closer, her violet skin glowing faintly in the sunlight, streaming through the broken window. "You still plan to take us farther?" John nodded. "There's an old transport station near the polar ridge. If we can reach it, we can hijack a shuttle and leave Mars." Her golden eyes widened. "Leave? To where?" "Anywhere safe," he said. "There's a moon colony near Jupiter. Rumors say they take refugees there." Sira hesitated. "And you? Will you stay behind?" John froze. He hadn't thought that far. "Maybe I'll find another outpost." "Start over." Her voice softened. "You would send us away to save us, even if you stay alone?" He looked at her, his jaw tightening. "I'd rather be alone than watch you die." She studied him quietly. Her hand reached out, touching his arm. "Then we will not leave you behind, human." By midday, they began the journey again. The desert stretched endlessly, glowing under the pale light. John led the way, carrying one of the children on his shoulders, while Sira held the other's hand. The air was thin, making it hard to breathe. The wind cut like blades, but they kept moving. Occasionally, John stopped to let them rest. He shared his remaining water, though his own lips were cracked. Sira noticed. "You give too much," she said softly. He shrugged. "You need it more." Her eyes lingered on him. "You speak like a father." He smiled faintly. "Maybe I'm learning from you." The words made her heart ache in a way she didn't expect. By the time night fell, the temperature dropped sharply. They found an old cargo dome half buried in the sand. Inside, John reactivated a small power core, enough to light the room faintly. The kids huddled close to the heater while Sira fixed a meal from the few scraps left. John sat on the floor, tightening the straps on his boots. He noticed the bruise on Sira's shoulder, a mark from the last escape. "You're hurt," he said. She shook her head. "We heal faster than humans. Still hurts though, doesn't it?" She smiled weakly. "Pain means we are still alive." Her calmness amazed him. She had lost her world, her mate, her home, yet she still managed to comfort him. They ate in silence. The children soon fell asleep again, their soft breaths echoing. Outside the wind howled, and the stars burned cold. Sira looked at John quietly. "When I came to your door that night, I thought you would kill us." "I almost did," he admitted. "Then you spoke." She smiled sadly. "You humans and your strange hearts." John chuckled. "Yeah, unpredictable things." She looked into his eyes. "Do you regret it? Helping us?" He shook his head. "Never. You made this empty planet feel alive again." Her gaze softened. "Then maybe you were the one who needed saving." The quiet was broken by a distant explosion. John jumped to his feet, rushing to the window. A dust cloud was rising in the distance. Military patrols again, closing in. He cursed under his breath. "They found us." Sira's eyes widened. "How? Scanners, maybe?" "We left a trail." He turned to her, his face set. "You have to take the kids and go through the back tunnel." "I'll draw them away." "No." She cried. "You'll be killed." He shook his head. "I'm human, Sira. They'll hesitate before shooting me. But they won't hesitate with you." She grabbed his arm, desperate. "You cannot fight them alone." He smiled faintly. "I'm not fighting. I'm buying time." Before she could argue, He pressed the memory crystal, the glowing cube her son carried, into her hand. "Take this. If I don't make it, tell them I believed in you." Her eyes filled with tears. "John, please." He stepped forward and wiped one away gently. "You said warmth means to share life. Let me share mine." And then he was gone. Outside, the red storm had returned. Sand whipped across the dunes as armored vehicles approached. John ran toward the ridge, firing his signal beacon to draw attention. The lights turned toward him immediately. Soldiers shouted commands. Drones whirred overhead. "Freeze! Identify yourself." A voice boomed through the static. John raised his hands. "It's me, Engineer John Hawley." He shouted, "I'm alone." A spotlight hit him. He squinted, pretending to stumble. Behind him, he could hear the faint echo of Syrah's children moving through the tunnel. The commander stepped forward, visor glinting. "We've tracked alien DNA to your zone." "Where are they?" John forced a laugh. "You think I'd hide aliens? You've been chasing ghosts." The commander's expression hardened. "We'll see about that." He motioned to the soldiers. "Search the area." As they spread out, one of the drones hovered near the tunnel entrance. John's heart pounded. They were seconds away from discovering Azayara. Without thinking, he grabbed a flare from his belt and hurled it toward an old fuel tank. The explosion lit up the sky. Flames roared, blinding the patrols. "Get down!" the commander yelled as the fire spread. The soldiers scrambled for cover. John ran into the chaos, shouting and waving to pull their focus. Bullets sliced the air around him. A blast threw him to the ground. Pain ripped through his shoulder. But he smiled because in the corner of his eye, he saw Syrah and the children disappearing into the dunes. He had done it. Hours later, the fire died. The soldiers searched the wreckage but found no aliens, only John Hawley, half-conscious, lying beside the broken dome. When they dragged him back to the colony, he said nothing. Every question, every threat, every hit, they couldn't break him. He simply smiled through the pain. "Where did the aliens go?" the commander shouted. "Home," John whispered. "Where they belong." The commander glared. "You just doomed yourself, human." John's eyes closed. "Maybe, but I saved a family. That's more than this war ever did." They locked him away in an isolation cell. Weeks passed. His wounds healed slowly. Rumors spread through the colony. Some said he had gone mad. Others said he'd fallen in love with an alien. But none dared to say he had done something noble. Then one night, the alarms went off again. Not for war, but for peace. A transmission came from deep space. The Elthorans had sent a message to the human colonies. It was not a declaration of war. It was a song. The message repeated one phrase in both languages: "Warmth is shared, not owned." And attached to the message was a file, the genetic code of a cure for the disease that had been killing both species. The name on the file read, "For John Hawley, from Syrah of Elthora." Months later, John was released. The war ended soon after. He was weak, scarred, and forgotten by most. But one evening, as he repaired an antenna outside the rebuilt colony, a small ship landed quietly beyond the ridge. He turned, and there she was. Syrah stepped out, her silver hair shimmering, her 2 children running ahead of her. John stood frozen, heart pounding. The little boy shouted, "Papa!" Before leaping into his arms. John laughed, tears filling his eyes. "You found me." Syrah smiled. "You saved us. It was time we returned the warmth." He reached out, touching her hand. "You sent the cure?" She nodded. "For both our kinds. No more hate, no more walls." The wind blew softly, carrying the scent of new air, clean, living air. The first signs of life returning to Mars.Si looked up at him. Now human. Do you still think you're alone? John shook his head, smiling. Not anymore. He looked at the children, then at her. Welcome home. That night, under the stars of Mars, John sat outside with Sira beside him. The children slept nearby, safe and warm. He looked at her and whispered, "You once said you'd warm my bed. But you did more than that." She smiled gently. "What did I do, human?" "You warmed my soul." They sat together in silence, the red sky glowing with new dawn, and as the first light touched the planet's surface, John realized something. Humanity had always believed it conquered worlds. But sometimes it was love that conquered humanity. For one alien widow, her 2 children, and a lonely human, the universe was no longer divided by species, but united by warmth.